hopefully that's the end of our research presentations. Hopefully you've found a lot of good value and seen a lot of things that'll help, and we're certainly always open to suggestions of things you'd like us to work on. None of this would work without, I told you in the beginning, it's a collaboration of the production industry and also the university. So I'm going to ask the chair of our advisory council, Robby Barkley, to come up and say a few words, and then he'll introduce Shane Burgess, the vice president of agriculture, life, and veterinary sciences and cooperative extension at the university. So I will turn it over to Robby.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here as well. This all started, everybody hear me okay? Yeah. This all started about 4 years ago, and Shane hatched this idea and got a whole lot of us to volunteer to get involved. And then for some reason, a whole lot of you decided that I should be chairman. So I've been chairman from the very beginning. But it's interesting. We want more and more research. One thing we find out is the more research we do, the more questions we have. And so we've got more and more questions to answer. But what's really impressive is how the YCEDA, Yuma Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture, has gotten the attention of so many people that want to participate and get involved. And I think Paul said earlier on, our goal is to have readily available to us world-class research. And we are developing that. We're getting, where is it that you can get a satellite tasked to fly over your area and help assist with the research that we're doing and that you're doing? And so, it's rather impressive. And we really have Shane and his team and all the rest of the researchers to thank for a lot of this. But with that, let me just, I'm going to read you this introduction, this bio on Shane. He's Mr. Energy. He is kind of like the Energizer Bunny here, but he's the Vice President for Agriculture and Life Science, or Life and Veterinary Sciences, Cooperative Extension, the Dean of the College of Ag of Life Sciences, Director, Arizona Experiment Station, University of Arizona. Dr. Shane Burgess has worked worldwide as veterinarian and scientist in cancer, virology, proteomics, immunology, and bioinformatics research. He has 187 referred publications, trained 37 graduate students, and has received nearly $55 million in competitive funding since 1997. He's the first in his family to complete college. He graduated with distinction as a veterinarian in 1989 from Massey University in New Zealand. He did a radiology residency at Murdoch University in Perth in Western Australia, where he concurrently co-founded Perth's first emergency veterinary clinic. He received his PhD in virology, immunology, and cancer biology, Bristol University Medical School, United Kingdom. He also built a lot of fences in Australia. I know that too. So he worked out in the maybe out in the country, out in the outback, on ranches and things like that when he was going to college. Dr. Burgess currently serves on numerous boards and committees, including the Agribusiness and Water Council of Arizona, the Arizona Farm Bureau, the Governor's Agricultural Best Management Practices Committee for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, the Bio5 Institute Dean's Advisory Board, Tech Launch Arizona's Internal Advisory Board, Arizona STEM Diploma Project Advisory, Flynn Foundation's Arizona Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee, the Arizona National Livestock Show, Reed Park Zoological Society, Arizona Sonora Desert Museum Board of Trustees, Pima County Agricultural Science Advisory Commission, Farm Foundation Roundtable Steering Committee, and is a member of the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine Board on Agriculture and Natural Resources. Dr. Burgess also serves on a number of university-level planning and strategy committees. I don't know where he has time to come to Yuma. So anyway, with that, I'd like Dr. Burgess to come up and speak. Thank you.
So it's interesting. I didn't realize I was the keynote speaker until I saw this. So that's got more to do with what I haven't read than what I haven't been sent. So the good news is this is like the shortest keynote speech in history, I think. So that's really great. So this whole inspiration actually came from one of my very first meetings here in Yuma when I had breakfast with Robby. And I asked him, I said, what can the university be doing better for you? And he looked and he thought and he said, oh, it's really, really easy. This is going to be a really simple thing to do. And I said, well, Robby, what is that? And he said, make the Europeans eat GMOs. And I said, well, why don't you give me something difficult to do? And it really encapsulates this whole idea of how are we going to actually use technology and integrate technology quickly, take advantage of it, fail forward, fail fast, and still do that in the context of what we're supposed to do in our teaching and research mission and a really, really critical cooperative extension mission. Cooperative extension's been around since, officially, since 1914, and but before that, people were extending the universities. The land-grant universities were the first to even think about doing this, and the ag colleges were extending out into the farmland. It's the cooperative extension service system, a service as it was then, which solved the Dust Bowl. I don't know if you know that, but if it wasn't for research and extension from cooperative extension, the Dust Bowl wouldn't have been solved, or at least we wouldn't be farming out in Oklahoma if it wasn't for cooperative extension. So there's so many things there, and then where was this gap that would enable us to do the sort of things that the Yuma Centre is doing? And it's conversations with Robby, and then of course with Vic Smith, Mark Smith, Gary Pasquinelli, many others, saying there's this hole. It's kind of equivalent to what people talk about the valley of death with tech transfer, but it's this valley of getting some of these connections, these quick technological connections that can be done, that just don't fit within our land-grant system. And that's where this, and then also be able to protect the intellectual property, being able to make sure that we can very, very quickly, in parallel to the university's tech transfer system, do proprietary research, which could be very, very quickly implemented, and find partnerships within the University of Arizona, but all around the country. And that's what led to this idea, which is the Yuma Centre today. And what was really, really important was we found the right director. And it was actually no accident that we ended up settling on somebody who's got an electrical engineering degree. Because if you think about all the things we're needing to do going forward, an electrical engineer is the perfect solution. The only problem is most electrical engineers are not somebody you'd want to have dinner with, because that was a joke. You can laugh if you like anytime, because they're not known for being highly personable people. They usually what they all do is they come to work in their office and they close the door behind them and they go to their cubicles. As they all come in, they just had their heads down, and then they go to the cubicles and they start emailing each other. So that's the kind of sociability of electrical engineers. And so getting the two in one packet is great. I wish the packet was a little shorter so I could look at Paul in the eyes, but we're really, really lucky to have Paul as our inaugural director. So on November the 3rd, our Cooperative Extension Economic Impact Analysis team reported the latest economic contribution numbers for Arizona's agricultural industry. And they reported that during Arizona Farm Bureau's annual meeting. By latest, of course, they're 2014 numbers, and we're getting close to entering 2018. So when we look at these economic numbers, there's a lag of 4 years. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of difference between what the economy was doing 4 years ago and what it's doing today. But anyway, regardless, they were able to report that the economic impact of agriculture is $23.3 billion in the Arizona economy. Well, actually, that's a little trivial drop in the bucket compared to the total Arizona economy. But the really critical thing that people fail to keep in mind is that primary economic sector is the primary driver of all economic wealth in all countries that have ever existed, in all civilizations. When you see a civilization collapse, it's usually been led by a collapse in the country to be able to provide food, and then secondarily health and welfare for its citizens. We saw back in 2010 massive food riots with a food price spike in the Middle East that led to the rise of massive expansion in terrorism from the Middle East. So this fundamental security contribution of food should never be underestimated. So even though that 23.3 billion, I mean, I'd quite like to have that in my bank account, but it's still relatively small. But the other thing that people don't remember is that $23.3 billion directly connects to Arizona's largest export industry, Does anyone know what the largest export industry for Arizona is? What do we export the most of? Yell out. Just see if you're still awake. Beef. What else? Any advance on beef? What's our largest export sector? It's tourism. Tourism counts as an export sector. And so what are we? We're the Grand Canyon state, right? What reason have you got to maintain rural infrastructure? Well, the primary reason is to ship around all your agricultural products. And if it wasn't for agricultural welfare, I mean, the welfare of agriculture, the welfare, whether it's ranch land or land down here, there'd be a lot less pressure to maintain our infrastructure, and of course our tourism sector would then suffer, and we wouldn't see the rise of more service sectors such as the rise of the wine industry without it. So never underestimate that. And of course the most important thing from my perspective is this Arizona economy is supporting 162,000 families. And that's a heck of a lot of families to be supported. And many people in the room today, you can count probably how many families your businesses are supporting, and that's incredibly important. And those families then are like my family. My family grew up in agriculture. We didn't have a lot of money. I look at my siblings who didn't make it through college, and I look at my parents and I look at my standard of living, and the only difference is education. And so it's from this platform and this connection with the land-grant universities, and then this connection with the industrial sector, and then the economy that the Yuma Centre shows that I think is so important for all of our welfare. So as you know, Yuma plays a massively outsized role in the state's agricultural economic output, but not just in the state. Yuma, of course, you all know this area is the winter greens capital of the United States between November and March. When I come down here in the late part of the year like I am now, it feels like it's been forever since I've been here. People say, well, why don't you come down over the summer? It's because there'd be no one to visit. That's why. But I hope to be here more November, December, January, February, March. And the new president of the university, Bobby Robbins, wanted to come down, and for some obscure reason his team decided July would be a great time to come down. And I said, well, you can go down there, you'll be pretty lonely. No one else will be around to talk to. So thankfully I think he's coming down later in the year, and I've really convinced him, I hope, to go see the border while he's down here, but I have to keep onto him on that. So of course we have many exciting things, I think, going on at the University of Arizona right now that are trying to support your vibrant industries, and hopefully this industry's development and diversification and decommoditisation. And of course, you're a great example of decommoditisation in Arizona. I mean, if you just one really good example of, not negative is the wrong word, one example of decommoditisation I use is a bottle of water. How many people have drunk out of a plastic bottle of water in the last week? Yeah, everybody, right? You know how much money you paid for that? Let's say you paid $1.50. Okay, you know how much the water in that was worth? It was less than a cent. How much did you pay for the plastic bottle? Oh, about 2 cents. So the rest of that was decommoditized profit. And so this is the point. And so what we see now when we see these bags of cut lettuce, and we see the technology that goes into these bags, that's an enormous added value of decommoditization. And unlike our bottle of water, it really does make a big difference to our consumers who are wasting less food, more convenience. More people are eating leafy greens because they're coming in these packets. So it's a big win for everybody. So we have some new degree programs being launched from the School of Animal and Comparative Biomedical Sciences. We have BS and Master's degrees in Animal and Biomedical Industries. Again, these people are learning lots to do with not just animal production as you might think of it, beef, but also there's massive herds of mice in the biomedical sector. But they're also learning about how these industries work for added value, and who knows what added value industries can come to Yuma. This is an ideal place for the state to grow economically, to invest economically. The Department of Defense already realizes this. One more in the works from the same unit, the School of Animal and Comparative Biomedical Sciences, is a Bachelor of Science in Food Safety, and I don't need to tell anybody here how important that will be. Our CALS Career Centre is using tools such as the Reverse Career Fair to position students for more successful internship experiences and employment and or entrepreneurial opportunities. And I want to take this opportunity right now to thank Steve Martori, who was one of the thought leaders in even creating our Career Centre at the University of Arizona. So thanks, Steve, because it's making a transformational difference for us. 10 of our faculty were just awarded a $15 million grant from the National Institute for Food and Agriculture to lead research on the mass production of biofuels and bioproducts in the Southwest through the Sustainable Bioeconomy for Arid Regions Centre. And really, the thinking has been very much stimulated by what's been going on here through cooperative extension, and then in particular, the entrepreneurial thinking has been stimulated by what's happened here at the Yuma Centre for Excellence in Desert Agriculture. And of course, I can't stand up here and talk about the University of Arizona without talking about somebody who actually sort of is the walking, talking, breathing, buzzing image of the University of Arizona, someone who makes me look like I'm walking around in my sleep, and that would be Tanya Hodges, who really has been the face of the University of Arizona and our anchor point down here, because without her, there wouldn't be this persistent buzz about how important it is for the University of Arizona to be here. I wouldn't have understood originally, and between Tanya yelling from Yuma and me continually pestering people on campus, I expect to see more and more growth in Yuma with the University of Arizona. Jeff Silvertooth is really focusing on Yuma County's cooperative extension. I've said it before, we must have a cooperative extension unit that as strong as the industry is. We need to have our cooperative extension units proportionately strong to our agricultural sector areas, and of course this county ranks in the top 1% of all counties for agricultural productivity, so that's a really important thing. President Robbins is using something called the Fourth Industrial Revolution when he speaks about the future of the university. And the Fourth Industrial Revolution sounds good, except when I tell you what it is, you're going to be saying, we've been doing this for a couple of decades or more. The Fourth Industrial Revolution is nothing more or less than the connection of biology, technology, and information sciences. Well, we've been doing that forever. When was the first genetically modified crop introduced to the United States? 1996. Some of you like me may not want to believe this, but that was 22 years ago now. And that was definitely part of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So when he talks about that, I never hesitate to explain to him this is nothing new for us. We've been doing this forever. We've been thinking about this forever. I mean, civilization wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for agriculture. So one of the things I would say, just as I wrap up here a little bit, is we need to keep a close eye on the most recent biotechnologies. And by biotechnology, I do not mean that nasty term that the marketing people in Monsanto decided would be such a brilliant idea, and that would be genetically modified organism, or GMO. I don't know if you know this. That was a marketing term dreamed up by Monsanto because they thought consumers would love it. So much for that. And of course, GMOs are really just transgenics, taking a gene from one organism, putting it in another. That's what scares people. But we have biotechnologies in the future now. Well, they're no longer in the future, they're today. CRISPR technology, some of you will have heard of that, and other technologies, enzymes that do very, very similar things. These mean we can look at, currently these are not considered genetically modified organisms. The science has gone so fast that the government regulators can't keep up with it. It's going to be really, really important that we don't allow the conflation of biotechnologies which have nothing to do with moving genes from one species to another with what people see as GMOs. Unfortunately, there was an article in NPR about 2 weeks ago, and you can look it up. The title was CRISPR Bacon, and the point was pigs don't have a certain gene in them that activates fat. All other mammals do. So what they did is they took this gene from mice. We have the same gene, they just happen to take the mice one. Took this gene from mice, stuck it in pigs, and all of a sudden the pigs, this was in China, and all of a sudden the pigs didn't put on nearly as much fat, because of that didn't need nearly as much food to grow, and didn't need nearly as much heat to keep alive. Now this is happening in China right now. The big problem was the actual CRISPR technology is not genetic modification. The way the government regulates it is not transgenic. Now there was transgenes involved in this, but a National Academy member conflated CRISPR technology with GMOs in an NPR article. And when we have our seemingly top scientists in the country conflating these terms for the consumer, that just hurts all of us, and it shows a lot of ignorance to being able to get technology into the market. You guys don't generally deal with GMOs, but you absolutely could benefit from all of the other kinds of biotechnologies that are coming on exponentially faster. And that's why Parker Anton, our Associate Dean for Research, is here, because that's one of the things he focuses on. So the Yuma Centre for Excellence in Desert Agriculture was the spark behind everything presented today, and of course much more that wasn't able to be presented. I will say that President Robin's focus on the Fourth Industrial Revolution is very interesting, because in Phoenix he's been holding 3 or 4, I can't even remember now, I've lost track, Paul, but there was 3 or 4 meetings where he chose what he considered to be the 5 top scientists. Was it 5 or 4? 5. 5 top scientists who would represent the future of the University of Arizona in terms of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And Paul Brierley was one of those 5 top scientists. In fact, on stage, he made a point to say, well, I'm not a PhD scientist, I'm not even a faculty member in the true sense. And the others were all in cancer biology and various other fields. They're all superstar scientists. And like all of us, I think Paul had a little bit of, was wondering why he was there, but I can tell you from the audience, not a single audience member was wondering why Paul was there on that stage. And Paul really represents our future and the future of the university very, very well. And so it's a real credit that an organisation that was built from the ground up in partnership with people here in Yuma is now seen to represent one of the futures of the University of Arizona, and indeed by our president, the futures of civilization going forward. I do want to take a moment to thank everybody who was involved in actually dreaming up the whole way this centre would work. And of course Robby was a leader, Vic Smith was a leader, Mark Smith in the audience was a leader. I don't see Gary, but Mr. Martori over there was a leader. There's a lot of people who had a say in this. Jeff Silvertooth from Cooperative Extension talking about how we could ensure that these organisations were complementary and not competitive. And I would say that, so in summary really, the Yuma Centre for Excellence in Desert Agriculture, I hope is transforming what you do, or at least transforming our thinking on how we could do things better. But it's absolutely been transformative on our president's thinking about where the U of A should be going, and that's a great thing. And then just to finish off with, I just want to say, wonderful little pad. This is a superstar. I think I love I love marketing tools, and this is great. So well done, Paul. And thanks for all of you and your time being here and all of your support in the past and going forward. Honestly, this could not have happened without the support from everybody in the human industry. So thank you very much.
All right, well that wraps up our morning session. I really appreciate Shane coming down. We all know it's further to get to Yuma from Tucson or Phoenix than it is to go to Phoenix or Tucson from Yuma, right? At least that's the way they see it. So thanks for coming down. I couldn't ask for a better boss. You know, without him behind me, without people like Robby behind me, I wouldn't get anything done. So this is what's unique about the Yuma Center of Excellence, is you guys give me credibility, so I appreciate it. I hope that some of the things that you saw today are helpful. Remember this card, our website has a lot more information, and we try to get things on there, videos of events that we do, and research results and all sorts of things. So use that as a tool, get that out to your colleagues and your employees. And I think that's about all I had to say for the morning. For the donors that are here, we're going to have a donor update luncheon in a separate room just behind this wall. We'll start that in 5 or 10 minutes if you can make your way over there. But for everybody else, thank you for coming. Thank you for your support, and we're always here to listen for new ideas to work on. Thank you.